What is going on, guys? So today, get ready to be captivated by the insights of a true industry powerhouse, Mr. Eric Billet. With an extensive career spanning roles such as Vice President, Regional Director at Casa Sasa, CFO at Velo, and his current positions as CEO at Staley Doors and Windows, CFO at Kin Capital Partners, his dynamic leadership and experience across finance, operations, and management are a testament to his unwavering commitment to growth and innovation. So don't miss out to hear this. Eric, I want to thank you for jumping on today. So the first question is kind of like a cliche one. Like what's your morning routine as a CEO, as a CEO and CFO? Do you meditate or anything like that?
Okay, I'll be real transparent. I've tried meditation in the past. There have been points in my life when that made a big difference. Recently, my morning routine has been wake up about 6:30, 7 in the morning. My wife's already been up with our two daughters, feeding them for half an hour. I load them up in the car. I always eat breakfast, always make coffee at home. I've got my nice coffee grinder. I want the beans ground in my house every morning. So I grind my coffee, make that, hit the ground running about 30 minutes later. I am in the cockpit fighting the good fight at 7:30, 8 in the morning every day.
So like from the moment you wake up, 30 minutes later, you're working?
I'm going. I used to, so for 10 years, I worked out every morning. I would get up. There were periods where I did meditation in the morning, periods where I did affirmations in the morning, worked out every single morning at the gym between 5 and 6. I'll tell you, man, kids throw that plan into the grinder and just destroy it. So you have to adapt your life to kind of what happens whenever you have a family. It's not just you. Whenever I was doing my hustle thing from 22 to 32 as a single guy, I had the most immaculate morning and daytime routine that you could set a clock based off when I was walking out of the gym in the morning. Now I get it when I can. I'm working out in the middle of the day. I'm waking up and getting my nutrition in. Then I'm hitting the ground running.
I mean, that sounds pretty simple. Sounds good. It sounds like you get straight to work. Do you do any mindset stuff, or are you just like right when you get off the bed, you're ready to work?
So I used to have to do a lot of mindset stuff whenever I was working for someone else's benefit and had to get myself excited to do that. But I find that whenever all the day's challenges and problems ahead of me are mine, it's a company that I'm building with my co-owner, that in itself is motivation enough. I find that a lot of the mindset stuff, it's really a cliche. I mean, you asked a cliche question, I'll make a cliche comment that people say that once you love what you do, you never have to work a day in your life, right? I jump out of bed on Saturday mornings and Sunday mornings and get to work. Not because I have to, but because I've got problems to solve and solutions to build that are mine. So the mindset stuff is super important. I think that as I've gotten in control of my own business, it's almost ironic. The mindset work that I have to do is on the opposite side. I need to make sure I don't forget my family. And so I have to make sure that I'm not forgetting the personal stuff and putting the business stuff always in the front.
So you do you believe in the balance thing?
100%, 100%. I think that I read somewhere once that you have to, that there's your career, there's your family, and there's the scene, which is like everything else, like friends, fame, social events. Pick two. You can't have three. And then those two, knock it out of the park. So I think that I've had to make some sacrifices on everything else in my life. If I've got 80 to 100 waking hours in a week, does that make sense? I have to prioritize my family, prioritize work, and make sure those things balance, because it's if one of them falls apart, the other one's going to go with it. So I 100% believe in balance. I think that it changes over time, that whenever you're in control of your schedule and in control of your business, what balance looks like changes. I work more than I ever have, but I'm more in control of my schedule than I ever have been.
Can you share your journey on how you started in business? When you were a kid, did you always wanted to be great in business?
Yeah. So when I was a kid, I used to love playing SimCity, Roller Coaster Tycoon, and all these like games that are probably older than you are now. But it was all these games where you'd organize and grow, like Age of Empires and stuff. And so I liked the idea of building stuff that got bigger and bigger. So whenever I got into college, I decided that I wanted to be an investment banker. Because back in the 2000s, if you wanted to make millions of dollars a year, you went into investment banking. I had the wake up call at some point that I was in a college in a relatively small town in Louisiana, and investment banking jobs don't grow on trees in Louisiana. So I pivoted, went into the highest level business thing that I could find at that point, which was Big Four accounting, like one of the major global accounting firms. Grew with them for 5 years, learned more than I could have in 10, 20 years of trying to do stuff myself. Moved from accounting to various roles in business that I stayed in for a year or two at a piece. Went into offshore cleanup and robotics, moved from there to banking, moved from banking to technology software sales, and learned what I could from those roles, but then wasn't quite satisfied. So I'd move on to find something else until I landed a role selling software in a field that I knew. It was financial software to banks, made my first real money. I was a CPA the whole time, and you make good, steady money as an accountant, right? But if you want to make a lot of money, you get in sales. I made a good amount of money in a handful of years. COVID hit and pivoted my winnings essentially in that field into a business partner and I starting to acquire companies. And that's how I got to where I am now. We're just build, buy another one, build, buy another one, build, and we're just growing a company across the U.S. right now. So it's and throughout that, I know that you're a real estate guy, or at least you focus on that. I did own some real estate at that point for a handful of years, and we can talk about that if you'd like to. But it was a minor aspect of what I did because you don't, unless you want to hustle and flip, you don't make money fast in real estate. A savings account, the way that I look at it, it's a slow growth savings account. It won't get you rich fast. It'll get you rich for sure, but over decades. And I had fast revenues that I wanted to work in. Looking for
it. Like if you're scared, like you said, entrepreneurship, you lost trust with yourself, like bag, you tried something, it failed, and now
yeah.
you're kind of scared. Like how would
That's a good question. How do you move towards fulfillment? Well, whenever I give advice like that, I like to think of it like a pie chart, or like a compass. If you don't know where you might find fulfillment, the next best thing is figuring out where you won't. So if you're standing and you've got a compass, points the whole way around in every direction, if you can find an entire quadrant of that and say, this stuff is not fulfilling to me, black that out. And now you're only playing with 75% of the board. Now you know that if I go this direction, I'm going in a good enough direction. There is no perfect path. But the more things that you can say, man, I tried that, it's not for me, black it out and move on, you're going to eventually narrow down to where if you're not moving in the perfect direction, if you can get half or more of the board blacked out and know that you're going at least in the right cardinal direction, then you're going to end up somewhere good. And the odds of you finding that thing that really just goes, bam, I am excited about this, is better because you've narrowed down the field of play to 25%. That makes sense?
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense. But what if you're that kind of dude that gets excited about a lot of things? You get excited.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you're like 6 months later, you're not that excited. Do you like stick with it because it could be it?
I have never been a stick with it guy. That might sound crappy, but I've never been a stick with it guy. Between the ages of probably 20 and 30, I started so many things that I thought were the thing, and then realized 3 to 6 months in they weren't, and I dropped them. I had intentions at that point, I'm going to come back later and try it. I never did, and now 10 years, 15 years later, I realized it never would have worked out. I tried starting an online business. I tried the Amazon drop shipping thing. I tried to start a consulting business. I tried to write a book, literally like a novel. And I thought all those things would be for me. And I tried a few of them multiple times, but at some point I had to step back and go, man, I'm failing at this. Why is that? Is it that I don't have a skill set that I should build? Or am I not into it? If the idea of even building the skill set to get that right is unattractive, and I'm like postponing it and delaying it, if I don't want to even do the work to get there, that isn't the right path. It's like you have to enjoy the destination. I feel like can be exciting, and can drive you as like a North Star, but you have to enjoy the work to get there too. If George is like, I want to be in real estate. Okay, well, do you want to go through the grind of raising capital? Do you want to go through the grind of putting in 100 offers a month to see if 3 trickle out? Do you want to do the financial analysis? Do you want to court banks? Do you want to do all of the work involved in that? If none of that excites you, but the idea of owning real estate does, real estate investment might not be the way to get there. You probably need to find something that excites you to make the money. And then once you've got the money, just buy the end product. Just buy the
Yeah.
real estate.
All right, so I was gonna play this with you. So if you're like, let's say you're at a job, you're making like 40 to 60K a year. You know, you hate that job. What is the one thing you would focus on to start improving like your finances?
Okay.
If that's what you want to focus on.
I started at 40 to 60. I started right at $50,000 a year right out of college, which fortunate in 2010 to be starting there in Louisiana. That's good comp. I was at Ernst & Young. Couple things. I would not take on debt. I think that's a boring tip, I know, but if you're only making 40 to 60, you don't need to take on debt to fund a lifestyle. You don't. I think that lifestyle creep is I've seen it happen to friends, to family, as you start to make more money. So 40 to 60, say you're fresh out of college, maybe that seems like a good living compared to whatever you were getting whenever you were working a part-time job in college. If you were making 24 in college or whatever you did in high school, and then jump to 50, you can probably start buying nicer stuff, rent a nicer apartment, go on some trips with your friends. That stuff gets out of hand quick. And then you realize at the end of the day, what you got when you were making 24 a year, you always had $3,000 in the bank. Whenever you're making 50 a year, you've always got $3,000 in the bank. I can almost guarantee that whenever you're making 100 a year, you're going to have $3,000 in the bank. Except at that point, the things you're spending money on are so much more expensive that $3,000 is insignificant now. So you don't have any risk, any appetite for risk at that point. I think that if I was making that, I would be saving whatever I could, not because saving will get you anywhere, but because at that point in your career, you need to take risks. You need to be able to take risks. And if you're making 50 a year, but you got $12,000 in the bank, that might take you a while to save that up, but that should cover your expenses for damn near 6 months or more. So if someone presents an opportunity to start a business or some opportunity to meet someone and learn something new or take a role that has some risk in it, having that cushion will allow you to do that. The role that jumped me out of what I'll say the rat race, I don't know if you follow Robert Kiyosaki and Grant Cardone and all those guys, the ones that jumped me out of the rat race was whenever I moved into sales. As a CPA, that was scary as hell. Someone saw in me an opportunity to sell software because I was a CPA, but I could also communicate with humans, right? So they said, do you want to take this sales role? Commission-based, we'd love to interview you. You need to get to Austin, Texas on your own, interview for this job. And by the way, the interview's in 2 days. So I'm 26 at the time. Someone says, I need you to spend $700 on a last minute flight, round trip. I need you to figure your own Uber stuff out. I need you to come to this company and interview for a sales role and then be willing to take on a commission role because I think that you could make $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year in this role as opposed to the 100 you were making in your banking role. How many 26-year-olds can say yes to that? I mean, I think that a lot of them would look at that and say, man, I've got $3,000 in the bank. This flight alone is going to knock down my savings by 1/3. And then how can I take on a commission role? They can't. They're 26 and they've already gotten themselves trapped in the rat race by needing that next paycheck to pay for their lifestyle. And so at that point in your career, trying to get as big of a difference, a delta between what you're spending and what you're making, it isn't about the savings. It's about whenever the opportunity presents itself to get to the next level, you're going to have to put something into that, whether it's unpaid time, whether it's risk of a commission job, whether it's spending money to go make that connection you need to. And if you're on the wire, you're going to talk yourself out of it. So having that safety net allows you to take that risk to jump to the next level.
And you said you were scared Like in the beginning? Was that because
Yeah.
were you like good at sales in the beginning? Were you?
I had never sold anything in my life. I was a certified public accountant that did accounting work, ran accounting teams. I was social and I could communicate and I'd been in management roles my whole life, but I never had to sell anything. And taking someone who grew up in a structured career based on your client has to have you, they can't not have you, and they have to pay you, and saying, I'm going to give you something that no one needs, but it's a nice to have. Now go convince someone to give you $1 million for it. That's scary. Um,
Yeah.
I was able to take the risk though. It came at a good time too, because you asked about mindset. At the big transition points in my life, I have always done some kind of mindset work up to that point. Leading up to taking that sales job, I just happened to have finished reading all of Grant Cardone's books and had listened to all the podcasts and was following him on YouTube and everything. And so I had a very aggressive Grant Cardone style sales mindset at that point, even while I was a CPA, because I'd been reading all that stuff, kind of aspirationally.
Yeah.
And then whenever the opportunity came up, the combination of having the safety net that I had built up and having Uncle Grant in my ear saying, "Don't be a little bitch," convinced me, okay, go out and make it happen. Whenever I left accounting and went into industry originally, I've been listening to Bigger Pockets, which I think is still a thing, the real estate
Mhm.
podcast. I've been listening to that for 2 years. And I came to the conclusion that if I'm just making accounting money, I'm not going to be able to invest in real estate ever. I need to get a job that makes real money. And that prompted the jump to industry where the pay is higher because of Bigger Pockets. So you asked about mindset work a little while ago. I don't do a lot of the hokey stuff. I'll
Mhm.
call it that. There's no shame in any of that. The affirmations are great. Meditation's great. But I consume content that puts me in a mindset that then tends to drive an action.
So you were consuming like all this content, but what about like your friends and family? Were they like supporting you? Were they like, you can do this, Eric? Like, or
So, okay, a little bit of both. I've always been kind of a do-it-yourself guy, and I kind of take a little bit of pride in being the oddball out, being the one that all of my friends are always like, "That's an Eric thing. That's really an Eric thing." And my family has always been super supportive. They don't necessarily get really involved in what I do, but they've always just been, "Man, you can accomplish anything you want. Go after it. We love you. Can't help you because never been there or done that, but get after it. We know you can do it." So support from the family, support from friends, but not like direct. I've always been kind of
yeah.
my driving forces in making those changes have typically either been one set of content that I'm following or one friend who is like my business partner now that I work with at Stately. He's at a level beyond me in terms of success in his career and stuff. So he is someone that his support means a lot to me. And so being able to partner up with him, and now he's a supporting force, and that's all that I really need. I don't need a whole team behind me pushing me. I need one person or one source to tell me you can do it, and I'll try it out.
On that case, you have like any mentors that you were like when you were coming up, or so do?
Be honest with you, I know there's a lot of value in mentors. I've never taken the time to find one. I probably should. I haven't had one mentor. I've had a lot of people that I've asked advice from and that I've talked to. Ever since high school, I think I'm very good with feedback, and I will change my opinion on a dime if you can prove me wrong. So I think that I'm very generally receptive to outside input. So if I had a friend's dad growing up who I was good friends with this guy, and his dad owned a very large construction business, and we'd go on vacations and stuff, and we would go to their beach houses, and every now and then they would have a plane that was available to bring us somewhere, and that was a different life than what I grew up in. Just happened to meet the guy in high school, great family, and so whenever he spoke, I listened. I had guys that I worked with in the oil field that were entrepreneurs that started businesses that were multi-millionaires that came from working cleaning offshore fuel tanks and grew into millionaires by starting businesses. I listened to what they said. And so I've never really had one mentor, but I've absorbed as much insight as I could from anyone who's done more than me in any area. No one's an expert at everything, but if someone has knocked it out of the park here, they're more than qualified to give me advice in that area.
And you said you had a team, right? Another thing that we're like, this is kind of a selfish question. We have a team. Like, how do you have those hard conversations with somebody, like giving feedback? You're not doing something, but you're scared of having that tough conversation. And you've been avoiding it. Now you're building
Yeah.
resentment. How do
So now
you?
you're asking me now about like my employees,
Yeah. How do
like
you
how? Okay,
approach? Yeah. How do you
sure.
approach that conversation?
So as transparency is always the best approach. I try to approach feedback as unbiased. It's here's the action that I'm seeing. It's not you, it's this action. I think that if I say, George, I've got a problem with you and you are too angry, or you do sloppy work, or you this, that's me attacking you. And that's never going to get received well either. If I say, George, man, this project you turned in, it's not what I wanted, and this is not going to fly for the scenario that we're in. So a couple things could have happened here. Something personal is going on in your life, or if you didn't understand the project, I'll take some on myself and say, look, did I not explain it well? Let's figure out how to get this to the point where it's going to work. So I think that taking a little bit of ownership of, if you're reporting up the path to me, if you're on a team that I'm running, I have some ownership in how well you did your work, because at the end of the day, I'm the one who's supposed to be making sure that you got it right. So coming at it from that perspective of, could I have done anything different to help you succeed, is attack path 1. Attack path 2 or 3 is if someone's just not getting it. At some point, and this is, I've never been good at this. I've gotten better at it over time, because whenever you've got 156 employees, if one person is causing a problem and risking the livelihood of the other 155, you've got to think about the larger group at that point. At that point, it's, look, man, this is not going to work out. I think that your skills are better aligned somewhere else or something else. If you disagree, let me know. Let's talk about it. But this is not the spot for you, because you're going to fail if we keep doing this together.
The last question is, it's just like, do you believe that either you're born with it or you're not? Like when you were a kid, did you have this deep belief that you were gonna make it, or like you were gonna be big in business?
No, I don't. I don't think you're born with it or not. I think that if we're being very transparent and honest, there are some people that are unfortunate enough to be born with limitations that prevent them from getting what they want. So that's horrible and sad, but there is some level of bad luck that can happen, right? On the other end, though, on the success end, I don't think anyone's born with guaranteed success. It's so easy to mess up. I think that it takes work. It takes a lot of work, takes a little bit of luck. It takes risk tolerance, and you can develop all those muscles. I've seen there are enough people. You're in Texas. Take a survey of 1,000 business owners in Texas that are multimillionaires. You're going to have every range of IQ. You're going to have every range of social skills. You're going to have every range of how they were born in terms of well off or not well off. I think that you're not born with it. I think that you have to have some happy accidents in life that you can take advantage of. But no, I don't believe that if you aren't born with it, you might as well give up. That's BS.